This is Suddenly Family. I'm Samuel Burke, and these are the true stories of people's lives forever changed by at-home DNA tests. In the blink of an eye, DNA results can transform a person's life. Your ethnicity can change. Your parents, your siblings, your whole narrative about where you come from can be erased, rewritten, and you can never go back to the way it was before. The ripple effects never touch just one person. They reshape the lives of entire families. When a woman named Carrie Adams takes a DNA test, she could never imagine how the results would engulf her and her sister's lives.
I called my older sister and I was hysterically crying, and she got angry and she said there's a mistake, that can't be right.
They look enough alike to be sisters, if not twins. And I just started bawling.
It's kind of heartbreaking now. I'm sorry.
Can two sisters weather a DNA storm? That's coming up on Suddenly Family. If you're listening to this podcast, that means you appreciate investigative storytelling. What if you had the chance to investigate and share important stories? Whether you want to dive into a new career in journalism or start your own investigative podcast, the Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication at Arizona State University offers a variety of graduate programs just for you. My first step was visiting cronkite.asu.edu, where you can explore the master's degrees in investigative journalism, mass communication, and sports journalism. Now, back to Suddenly Family. Carrie, you were born in the 60s and raised in Missouri. Can you take me back to the beginning and tell me a little bit about your childhood?
I grew up a middle child, 3 daughters. Grew up in a happy family for the most part. Kind of interesting growing up. I was always different than my 2 sisters, which we always joked about. Used to tease my mom and say, "Okay, what did the mailman look like?" She would just laugh.
Beside physical appearance, did you feel like your personality was different, your traits were different from your sisters or your parents?
Yes, my personality is much different than both of my sisters. They're more, I would say, probably not as social as I was in high school, and probably I still am. And they used to tease me about that too. My mom and dad would both say, you're a little social butterfly, and definitely a difference in personalities. We still talk about that to this day. So that was something that stood out, but never really thought anything of it.
And looking back on your childhood, was there a parent that you were closer to?
Through my teenage years, I would say I was definitely closer to my dad. My dad was an amazing human being. He was always there for me. My friends and I were just talking the other day about when we were teenagers and we would go out. He would sit in the living room chair until we got home, whether it was midnight or senior year in high school after midnight. He would sit there and give us a hard time if we came in late, but he was a very loving father, very involved.
Did you grow up in a religious household? Were they strict?
My mom was raised very strict Catholic, so my parents got married in the Catholic Church, and we all, as we were little, were in the Catholic Church, and then my parents ended up getting divorced. So at that point, my parents left the church. And then after that, we kind of just went to different churches. I think my mom was really confused at that point because she was raised very Catholic.
Carrie's in her early 20s, and the divorce hits her hard. But there's a lot more to the separation than she realizes.
And it was during that time that my father, he asked me to come pick him up one night. He was at a poker party and he'd been drinking, so he asked me to come get him and drive him home. And he confessed to me at that point that he was gay. And I was in kind of a state of shock. I think that probably deep down I kind of knew, but I didn't want to admit it. And I had a lot of confusion at that point, so I didn't talk to him for a couple of months. I had to work through it on my own. And then we came back together in a couple months and had a good serious conversation about everything, and it gave me a much bigger understanding of what had happened in his life and where he was at in his life at that point.
And what goes through your mind when your father tells you that?
I thought, how could you be gay? You're a dad. You have 3 daughters. So it was something I just couldn't wrap my head around at the time being. And I will tell you that up until the time he died, I was still in denial about it. Dad died from leukemia at the age of 60. He did have a partner at that time. But my sisters and I, we still had a really hard time with it.
Did it go against your religious values?
It did go against. I was going to a Christian church and was very involved. So that was part of my big struggle. I've come a long way since then, and I realize that God loves everyone. And it's kind of heartbreaking now. I wish I could have those conversations now. But I know that he knows. So he was an amazing human being.
In the years after Carrie's father passes away, her connection with him only grows deeper. Carrie thinks finding out that her father is gay will be the biggest shock of her life. Decades later, she decides to take an at-home DNA test. And like so many people, Carrie has no idea DNA tests match you to other relatives who've taken the same company's test. When she orders the kit from Ancestry.com, Carrie's interested in just one thing.
I loved my Irish heritage, and I remembered my Irish grandfather, and I just developed an interest in it. I love the music and the culture. So once I started hearing about Ancestry, I'm like, oh, I would love to look into that to see really how Irish I am. So I sent it in February of 2019, and I got it back on March. I think I got it back on St. Patrick's Day. It came on a Friday morning. I was getting ready for work, and it popped in my text message that it was ready to review. I'm kind of skimming through it, and I didn't even realize that it showed your DNA links. Honestly, I really thought it was just going to show how Irish I was, which it did pop up right in the beginning, 71% Irish. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And then I scrolled on down, and the very first person it showed my DNA link was my nephew, Cody, who is my sister Kelly's son. And then the next 5 people that showed up were Bradfords. In that second, my life changed.
We'll be right back. Podcasts shed light on stories that otherwise may not be told. What if you could be that voice for someone? Well, you can. The Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication at Arizona State University allows you to do just that. Become an investigative journalist, a strategic communicator in the media field, or a thought leader in the world of sports. Do what I did. Visit cronkite.asu.edu to learn more about their graduate degrees. Who will you become at the Cronkite School? Now, back to Suddenly Family.
And then I scrolled on down, and then the next 5 people that showed up were Bradfords. In that second, my life changed.
Did that name mean anything to you?
No, my mind started racing at that moment. I don't know any Bradfords. I don't think I've ever even met a Bradford. No, I can tell you for the next several hours, I was in a complete state of shock. I wanted answers instantly.
Carrie's closest match is her nephew, Cody, and she wants to see if he's also matching up with the Bradford family. So she asked Cody's wife for a copy of his DNA results.
I said, can you send me Cody's test results very quickly? And she said, absolutely. And so she sent it to me right then, and my nephew Cody has all these canon, who were my dad's family, all these links to them that were not on my DNA links.
Carrie's results match her to a family with the last name Bradford, but don't show any links to the Cannons, her dad's side of the family. What kind of things were you thinking could be happening here?
Well, my first thought was there must be a mistake. I don't know who these next 5 people are that are supposed to be closer to me than my own cousin Kathy. I was in shock. I immediately went into, I have to find out who these people are. And the very next day, I had messaged Brooke Bradford. She was the one that showed up first and looked astonishingly like me. And she called me the next day and she started helping me put the pieces together.
What are you thinking? Are you thinking I may be adopted or there's been some type of switch?
I need answers immediately. And I called my older sister and I was hysterically crying. And she got angry and she said, there's a mistake. That can't be right. And I said, I don't think it is a mistake. Cody's on there, her son. I looked at Cody's results and he's got all the Cannons on there, but I don't know who these Bradfords are. She said, well, just calm down. We'll put it together when you get here. So I went to her house and so we started thinking of anyone we could think of that would maybe have some answers. So we ended up calling my father's sister, and she was the one that started giving me some answers.
What did she tell you?
She told me an interesting story. She said the day I was born that my mother was in labor and she was angry and yelling at my dad and told him he needed to leave the hospital because I was not his baby. And he refused to leave. He said, I'm not leaving. And my aunt's version was that there was a man and that my mom had an affair with this man and that I was his baby.
What goes through your mind when your aunt says this to you? She's telling you that she knows more about your paternity than you have your whole life.
Yeah, and she said to me, well, Carrie, I thought you knew all of this. I said, no. How would I have known this? Nobody's ever told me anything. She said, well, how much do you want to know? And I said, I want to know everything.
Neither of Carrie's parents are alive, so she's having to rely on what her aunt is telling her, and what she says is shocking to Carrie on two levels. She isn't just saying the dad who raised Carrie was not her biological father. She's also saying he knew he wasn't her biological father.
Then we thought of another person, my mom's best friend, who's still living, and she still has her full cognitive memory. And so I called her. Her name's Merle, sweet as can be. And on the phone, I told her, I said, I have just found out this information. Do you know anything about this? And she said, oh, Carrie, I thought you knew all about this. I said, no.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
What does that feel like when you have friends and family telling you something so intimate that you have no idea about? Do you feel betrayed?
I really think that they all just thought I knew, and no one ever treated me any differently. My dad has a very large family, and even to the end, they wanted to protect my dad's memory. For whatever reason, my dad wanted me to only think of him as my dad. I think it was more of a protective mode.
Everybody seems to know about your paternity, except for you.
Yes, me and my sisters. By then, Brooke Bradford and I had had a few discussions, and she's the one that told me, Tommy Bradford is your father, because of her own research she had been doing. And so by the time I called Merle, I knew a name, and I asked her, I said, Merle, do you remember the man's name? And she said, I remember that he liked to play pool and that he was tall and very nice looking and he was quite the ladies' man. And I said, but do you remember his name? And she was thinking and thinking. And I said, was it Tommy? She said, yes, that's it.
And so what do you find out about him? Is he even still alive?
So my mind is still spinning, but I was determined I'm going to find out who he is.
The DNA test, a newly discovered niece, and Carrie's mom's best friend all confirm Tommy Bradford is Carrie's biological father. As she researches him, she sees he would be 90 years old now, and she's astonished when she finds out her 90-year-old biological father is still alive.
I was in shock. I mean, my first thought was, well, he's 90, so great, he's still alive, but Is he going to know who I am? Will he have any memories? I found a name and number, and I called him one day. He got on the phone. I said, "My name's Carrie. I believe you're my father." My mother was Margaret Cannon. He said, "Yes, yes." He didn't act surprised or anything. And I said, "I'm sorry. I'm sure this comes as quite a shock to you." And he was actually funny, and he went, "Surprise!" and started laughing. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, are you serious right now?"
Carrie's biological father is not caught off guard by her call. Relatives have tipped him off that through her DNA test, Carrie's discovered he is her biological father. And Carrie senses he's long known he might be her father. Do you feel a click in that first call, a kinship, or is it just trying to do a dance and figure out how the other is moving?
Yeah, I would definitely say the dance, because it was a very big thing to try to wrap your head around, which I'm still doing to this day. I just try to allow myself to take it moment by moment. But yeah, definitely now I see a lot of similarities in our personalities. He's a very fun, gregarious personality. He's a strong spirit, which I feel like I've been most of my life. I'm just astonished at how lucid and sound mind he is. He's 91 now, and we talk about every other week. He calls me, and when we hang up, he said, "It's so good to hear from you, sweetie," and it's pretty sweet. And he has very vivid memories. That has been a blessing to be able to get some answers there, since I don't have my parents still living to be able to talk to them.
I think that's what's so incredible, that you've had two parents who raised you, who passed away, and then suddenly you get a whole other shot at having a parent in a very different way than you've ever imagined.
Yes, I've gone to visit him. I think we've had 3 visits. All 3 of my grandchildren have met him. Actually, tomorrow I'm going into Kansas City, so I'm going to try to probably have breakfast with him again and maybe take my son to meet him. I would like for him to meet him. With him being 91, we're kind of at that time where we need to make those things happen.
No time to waste.
Right.
Whatever anger a child could have toward a parent who cheated on the other parent, when you start connecting all the dots and realize that, yes, your mom was having an affair, but your dad was gay, did you feel more forgiveness for her then?
Yes, I did. She also protected him. I think she knew for a long time. My mom got sick with cancer, and I remember I thought I was telling her some big explosion that Dad was gay. And I still can see the look on her face, because I was looking to see this look of shock, and she had the most loving look on her face, and she said, "I don't love him any differently."
Wow.
They had such an amazing relationship. Even my mom had remarried when she got sick and was dying. My father was still there for her too. It was pretty amazing.
Knowing now that he knew that you weren't his biological daughter, what does that change the memory that you have of him or the respect that you have for him?
Oh, he's my superhero. I've thought back and I've thought, he had leukemia and I helped take care of him when he was dying, and he had every opportunity if he wanted to tell me, but he didn't. He wanted to die at peace, knowing that I'm his daughter, and he did.
This discovery has been a lot for Carrie to take in, but it's actually even more difficult for Carrie's older sister, Kelly. She struggled since the very first moment she found out about the DNA bombshell, and it's challenged their relationship in ways they never could have imagined.
It's still taken her a while to process. I think that will probably be a lifelong thing. And she did. She got angry. Why would Mom do this? And I said, you really can't think that way. You have to think of, look at how they protected me. And we'll never know the reasons why, other than We just have to make our own peace with it.
And has she been mad at you for digging up the dirt, so to speak?
I think she was initially because she didn't understand all of it. She has since also taken Ancestry DNA, so she has her own test results now. I think she just needed her own time to process. She just didn't understand what was happening, and she didn't understand that I didn't do it on purpose, which makes no sense whatsoever. But she had to wrap her own brain around everything.
I've been talking with Carrie for more than a year, and I've heard from Carrie's point of view the struggles she and her older sister have had as Carrie's embarked on a new relationship with her biological father, and it's been an uphill battle. So I'm surprised when her older sister, Kelly, agrees to speak with me. Kelly's honest about how challenging it's been for her from the very first moment.
I literally had just got home from work one night and got a call from her telling me this out of the blue, and she was in tears. She was broken, and she's saying, "Kelly, you're never going to believe this." I literally think I was in shock for 2 or 3 weeks.
Did you believe it when you first heard it?
Nope, I was in denial. I did not believe it. And when I finally said, "Okay, I know this is true," is when Carrie started reaching out to some of the people on her DNA test that were related family members to her, and especially the one niece in California. And Carrie sent me a picture of her, and I just started bawling. They look enough alike to be sisters, if not twins. She started sending me pictures of her biological father. Carrie looks exactly like her biological father's side of the family.
You say when you first see the photo of Carrie and her niece that you start bawling. Why did you start bawling?
Because then I knew it was true.
And that was hard for you to accept.
It's very hard for me to accept because all the things start rushing through your mind. We all had very close relationships with our parents, but I in particular had a very, very close relationship with my dad. And I cannot understand why he would have not shared this with me.
I hear the pain in your voice. Are you upset that your dad had to live through all of that? Are you upset that your mother had an affair?
It just upsets me that I can't ask my parents. I can't gain an understanding because they're gone. I mean, there's no real answers to come out of it. It makes no difference to me. Carrie is my sister. She'll always be my sister. Nothing's ever changed that.
Carrie finds out this news and she starts pursuing a relationship with her paternal side of the family and with her biological father. How does that affect you?
It hurt me really bad at first. Her starting to send pictures through as she was meeting with them individually and then realizing, setting in that it was actually true. I don't think that she purposefully did this. She was just trying to include us, but she kept trying to get me and my sister to get involved and meet some of these people. It took me a while to come to terms with that it was really real and that I had to accept it one way or another because it was just hurtful. Feeling kind of like she was robbed from us is actually the best way I can put it. She's got this whole other family and feeling like she's being taken away from us. I've worked through a lot of that. And, the realization that nothing's ever going to upset or destroy our family. I will have to say that I was jealous. I was jealous for a while.
Well, I think that's really brave of you to say. I think a lot of people are going through this now and they don't realize that all these human emotions can come up not just for them, but for the people around them. Did it hurt you that she started pursuing a relationship with her biological father because you saw that as a betrayal maybe of your father, the father who raised Carrie?
Yes, sir. Very much so. Our dad wanted a relationship with her and had a relationship with her and was blessed by her. So I strongly resent her even giving him the time of day. I'm sorry, but I strongly resent that.
But you must understand the natural curiosity of anybody to want to know about their biological parent and have some type of relationship with them.
I understand the curiosity, and I think that she's done sufficiently well in satisfying that curiosity. Carrying on any kind of relationship, I don't understand her wanting to have any kind of relationship with him. He's in his 90s. And her being 55 years old is useless to me.
You know that Carrie thinks the world of your father.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And I was so proud of her for realizing that up front instead of being upset about why didn't Dad tell me? Why didn't Mom tell me? I was so proud of her for coming to that realization that, hey, they had the reasons for doing it. We're not going to figure out what it is, but my gosh, that makes him even a better man.
It's really incredible what Kelly's just said. Her younger sister is at peace with their mom and dad for withholding the fact another man was her biological father. But older sister Kelly just isn't there yet. And fair enough, it's a life-changing revelation. Did this DNA result strain your relationship with Carrie, with your sister, for a time?
It didn't strain it. I felt helpless because I've always been the one that they've called the mother hen that's always looking out for everybody, taking care of everybody. And I felt helpless because I didn't have any answers for her. And because I was having my own pain about it, I couldn't give her a lot of guidance or suggestions on what she should do.
It's difficult because there's no guidebook for this, for anybody who's going through it. It's becoming more and more common because of DNA testing. And so I think that is the hard part because there's no playbook, is there?
No, there's not. Absolutely not.
And this journey that you and your sister have been on about how to communicate about this and come to terms with these different points of view that you both have, which are very, very different. Do you take away anything from that journey?
I understand fully. And if I was in Carrie's shoes, I would have had to do the same thing that she did. I would have had to find out more. So I don't take anything away from that. I understand that completely.
It's been a bumpy road to get where they are today. Both sisters now realize their bond is much stronger than anything a DNA test can tell them about themselves. Carrie's joined a support group on Facebook for people who've had life-changing DNA results. The group is called the NPE Fellowship. NPE stands for Not Parent Expected. This community has helped Carrie work through the delicate balance of new family with the family she's had her entire life, and helped Carrie work through the struggles with her older sister.
Our relationship is probably stronger than ever now. And it's really bizarre because I can't even think of my sisters as half-sisters because we grew up not ever knowing that. I did have an aha moment one day when I was reading the NPE group on Facebook. Someone had wrote, I just realized I have no full biological sibling. I had never even processed that thought until that moment. And so that was kind of a weird feeling, but I still don't really feel that way.
What does it mean to you that all this has happened to you? What has it taught you? Did this give you more respect for your parents in some ways?
I have nothing but love and respect, and I miss them every day. And I sometimes can have conversations with them because I feel like they're listening. And I do feel like they're surrounding me with their love. It's pretty amazing to think about my dad. He raised me as his child, and that paternal love and protection like a biological father does. Probably even more so. He's a hero, for sure. You would love him. Everyone did. He's a great man.
On the next episode, the deaths of a baby girl and her mother shed light on America's horrific baby scoop era.
I always wanted her to love me, and she never was going to. I said, I forgive you for absolutely everything. She died 3 weeks later. I was never going to be able to find anything out until my daughter gave me Ancestry. That was the gift of a lifetime.
That's on the following edition of Suddenly Family, a production of CNN Philippines and Loomis Productions. Our editors are Lori Burke, Elizabeth Joseph, and Elaine Lee. Sound engineer, Levi Mercurio. Executive producer, Michelle Ancheta. Executive consultant, Army Harin Bennett. This show is created, written, and hosted by me. I'm Samuel Burke.
I have a responsibility as a journalist to tell the public what's going on.
Now more than ever, the role of the media and journalists is extremely important.
To make that first rough draft of history into akin.
As journalists, we deliver the news, we give the right kind of information.
News really has the power to shape and influence a person's perspective of the world.
It's about the people, it's about the stories.
We verify, we confirm, we double check, we triple check from different sources.
To give them the truth. Trust in one word, I would believe, is integrity.
You can't force trust, you have to earn it.
People can't trust me if they know that I don't know what I'm talking about. It can be very challenging, but it's very, very fulfilling.
News you can trust.
News you can trust.
This is CNN Philippines. News you can trust.